Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of S&M Radio, the second of 2016. I'm Shannon.
And I am Mark, and I promise you this is a better movie than the first one.
True. Yeah, the first one was a bit of a stinker, that's for sure. Oddly enough, we're not talking about a Canadian movie this time, or any foreign movie either.
No way. This is one in the States for us this time.
And we're pulling out the big guns this time. The second movie of 2016, we have George Romero, we have Stephen King.
And these are the big guns.
We have Ted Danson. We have
Leslie Nielsen.
Leslie Nielsen before I don't know if this was before he was known as a comedic actor or not.
Hal Holbrook. Adrian Barbeau.
Hal Holbrook, no way!
Hey, he was in The Fog, too. I like that movie.
This time we are talking about the 1982 horror classic Creepshow.
Yes, and it is a definite horror classic. This is a movie that if you are a horror fanatic, you need to see this movie.
Yep, and I would say to this day, this movie still holds up.
Absolutely. In every single way. It is a fun horror movie. And I gotta say, too, I met somebody that was in this movie. Last August, when we went to Flashback Weekend, I met the one and the only Tom Atkins, who plays the father in this movie, who is in, like, the story outside of the skits, or whatever you want to call them, the short stories in the movie. And so Tom Atkins, yeah, if everybody, you should know him from this, from The Fog, from Night of the Creeps, from My Bloody Valentine 3D, from Halloween 3. He is the one and only Tom Atkins. Someday we'll have to do a Tom Atkins episode.
I thought for sure you were going to be like, I met Hal Holbrook. I was like, no way!
Not yet. Maybe he'll be at the next one.
Creepshow is one of these movies, and I don't even remember why or how this happened, but when I was a teenager, I got turned on to Creepshow. I still don't know why. I remember getting Creepshow and Creepshow 2 on a VHS tape from my grandmother for some reason. I don't know why. I don't remember why. I'm pretty sure because I asked for them. Creepshow had this kind of cool, like, anthology feel to it. And it's not like what we're used to nowadays, where you watch these anthology films and all of the stories are intertwined and everything's connected. Creepshow was 5 separate short stories, and they were separate. There was nothing about them that connected to the other ones. There was nothing, like I said, with the original Creepshow, and we're only going to focus in this episode on Creepshow, the original one from 1982, because we will do a separate episode on Creepshow 2. We could almost do an episode on each of the short stories from the Creepshow movies, because that's how great they are.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Creepshow is one of my favorite horror anthologies. And I remember, actually, it's really fun. I'm glad we're finally reaching the Creepshows, because Creepshow is something that you introduced me to. I had no desire to watch it. Back when we were kids, it was slasher movies for me. I mean, we had Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. That was what it was about. So anything outside of that, I wasn't all that interested in. And I remember you got a copy of Creepshow. You had an actual, like, with the sleeve, the cover, the box art and everything, and which was kind of rare, because back then, when you were building your video library, it was basically stuff you taped off a TV or cable. And you actually had a purchased version of it and brought it over, and you're like, no, we're going to watch this movie. And we watched it, and it was awesome. And it's one of those movies that every year it's on my October list. I have a list of movies that I have to watch every October, and Creepshow and Creepshow 2 are both in it. So yeah, I love this movie. I think it's one of the best anthologies out there, and the sequel as well. And if you're a horror fan, if you haven't seen this movie, you have to go out and purchase it. Don't even bother renting it. Don't bother Netflixing it, if that's even a word. Don't bother going on Amazon unless you're purchasing it. You want to purchase this film and have a physical copy in your hand with the cover art of the skeleton at the ticket booth. You got to get this movie.
Yeah, this movie is so great. Like we said earlier, there are 5 different short stories that aren't connected at all. And I think one of the things we should probably go ahead and talk about real early on is this movie is directed by George Romero and was written by Stephen King. The 5 different stories and the way that they are portrayed in the movie is they pay homage to these old 50s comic books. You had EC and DC horror comics back in the 50s. A lot of these were actually banned at the time. So you had House of Mystery, House of Secrets, The Witching Hour, Tales from the Crypt, which spawned a whole nother series way after these came out. The Vault of Horror, The Haunt of Fear. The Creepshow movie really did a really good job. And as you were saying earlier, you had Tom Atkins playing this father figure in this story that was outside of the 5 short stories. And that had this real comic book feel to it. The kid in that movie was reading comic books and he wasn't supposed to be. One of the other things with this movie that is real important to this show is all of the special effects were done by none other than Tom Savini, which we've actually dedicated a whole show earlier last year to the great Tom Savini. It doesn't get any better than this, folks. If, like Mark said, if you haven't delved into Creepshow, stop what you're doing right now. Press stop on your phone, on your computer, whatever you're listening to this, and get off your fat ass and go and find a copy of Creepshow and throw it into your VCR and watch it.
I actually think the copy I have, I got out of the $5 Walmart bin, if I remember correctly. Actually, it's the second copy because the first copy I got out of the $5 Walmart bin, when I brought it home and opened it up, it didn't have a disc in it. So I guess the moral of the story is be careful when you purchase movies out of the $5 Walmart bin. Yeah, so this film consists of 5 short stories. Father's Day, The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill, Something to Tide You Over, The Crate, and They're Creeping Up on You. And I will say, I love all of them. I think they're all great shorts. They're great stories. But I'm going to have to say my favorite of all of these, of my favorite story in this anthology is, can you guess what it is?
I'm going to say The Crate.
Yes, you're right. Yes, and it's not because of Hal Holbrook either. Yeah, The Crate is my favorite. I thought about it for a while. I was thinking about it, like, which one's my favorite? Father's Day is good. The one with the Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill with Stephen King. That's a good one too. That's a fun one, and Something to Tide You Over. That seems to be the most popular one from what I've kind of read as we kind of prepped for the show. And The Crate, and then They're Creeping Up on You is pretty good as well. But I'm going to have to say The Crate, to me, something about that one is I'll talk a little bit about it. It's basically these 2 university professors. One of them goes back to the school, and they find the janitor there finds this crate underneath the staircase, and it hasn't been opened in who knows how long. And so they drag it into one of the laboratories in the university, and they open it up, and of course there's this terrifying, scary monster, which isn't all that terrifying when you see it, but still pretty terrifying. And a lot of old school gore effects ensue. But I don't know, the whole concept of this old crate and there being a monster living in it after all these years to me is really cool. And then the kind of the side story is Hal Holbrook. His wife is Adrienne Barbeau, and you all should remember her from The Fog and Escape from New York. And she was married to John Carpenter for a period of time. She plays this complete and total bitch, and he cannot stand her. She's like this alcoholic wife who doesn't know how to shut up, doesn't know how to act around people, doesn't know how to socialize, is always yapping. And so anyhow, he gets her to go check out this crate so that she can be eaten by this monster. And it's a great episode, and it's very tongue in cheek, very much like I could see this played out in a comic book easily.
I would have picked that episode or that short story as my personal favorite as well, but you beat me to it. You had the Father's Day episode, which was this really 80s feel to it. It's this hoity family out in the middle of nowhere. You come to find out that the one daughter, Bedella, who went through all this abuse from her father and ended up basically killing her father, and then she ended up in the cemetery, like on his grave, drinking. I think it was actually Jim Beam.
Was it?
Maybe that's what we should have been drinking this episode.
Hey, I think the Budweiser was a good idea.
And then he comes to life, and the whole time it's like, "Where's my cake? Where's my cake?"
Yep.
So you kind of end up with this, it is a George Romero movie. You end up at the end of the movie, or at the end of this episode, with kind of like a zombie character coming out of the cemetery, looking for his cake. And then you had said, you had the Stephen King story where Stephen King himself played Geordie Verrill. And basically this was based off of one of Stephen King's short stories called Weeds. And it's this little backwoods hillbilly guy. A meteor crashes in his field, and he goes out and he goes to inspect it, and he touches the meteor and it burns his finger. And he sticks the finger in his mouth and he's like, oh darn it. And then turns out that he's trying to pay off a loan, and so he's thinking he's going to take this meteorite to the college and sell it for $200 or whatever. He gets overtaken by this alien vegetation, and so it overtakes his body. And at the end of the short story, he's got a shotgun he puts in his mouth and he blows his head off.
Yeah, it's a great costume too towards the end when he has become a full-fledged man vegetable thing.
Man vegetable, I like it.
Yep.
And then you had the third story was the Something to Tide You Over, which we were talking about before. We had Ted Danson and Leslie Nielsen in this one, and this one is where Leslie Nielsen is this older guy who decides that he's going to kidnap these people, and he buries them in different parts of the beach. And then essentially waits for the tide to come in. And then in a very, what I would suggest from my personal experience, what would come to be a very Tales from the Crypt ending to the story is, the two people are swept out to sea by the tide, but somehow survive, and again in a very Romero type way, end up like zombies, and they come back and they, have their way with Leslie Nielsen.
and they put him back in the sand too, and then his death is basically the same. At least that's what we're led to believe. But yeah, very very much like another Tales from the Crypt comic type episode for sure.
And then you had the crate, which was what you had already talked about with the crate under the stairs. And then the very last one, which, while it's a very good story, to me, the fifth one has always been something that never really fit in with the rest of the movie. And it's They're Creeping Up on You is the name of it. And it's this landlord, or whatever you want to call him. He's this like uppity businessman, and he lives in this like sealed apartment, that's supposed to be clean and all this stuff. The whole scene is the best way to explain it is very white.
Yeah, and actually I heard about the reason they did that. Originally they had it was going to be more of like a classic styled mansion type location with lots of drapes and pictures and colors and all that stuff. But what happened is when they released the bugs, you couldn't see them. So they were like, oh crap, we got to like go back and like do this like differently. So they made like this guy's apartment like all white so that when they released these bugs everywhere, you were able to see them moving around and running around, and in contrast to the white backgrounds.
Oh, that makes sense. But it's a little bit eerie, especially if you're like most people. I would assume that most people, because I am completely kind of creeped out by cockroaches, creep the shit out of me. I don't know why, but they do.
They suck.
This episode or this short story is pretty much that's what happens. Is this guy is overtaken by little cockroaches, and they even gets to the point at the end of the episode where they're like bursting from his body.
And that is pretty creepy. Yeah, it comes right out of his chest cavity.
Ugh.
Nasty. And I heard too that these roaches that they used were hissing roaches, and that the people on set had to actually they had these brought in from, I can't remember where, but they had to after every scene they had to do like a count and count each and every one of the roaches, and including the dead ones, because they had to send them all back to wherever they got them.
Ugh. What's
pretty
that?
Nasty.
Madagascar hissing roaches? Is that what it is?
Something like that, yeah.
Ugh. I hate cockroaches. I'd rather wrestle a snake.
Yeah, they're no fun. They are no fun. Yeah, so it was those 5 episodes, and I guess also that I didn't realize this, but they made a comic book of the same name. And I don't know what year that was, but and it's supposedly very much influenced by the 50s EC comics. So I'd like to get a hold of that. That'd be kind of cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. That would totally be cool. One of the things that I did in preparation for this episode, because we live in the 21st century.
Some of us do. I'm still kind of in the 20th.
I went back and decided that I would be able to dig up all these old comic books that inspired this show or this movie. And like we had said before, when we were originally talking about some of these comics, that a lot of these were banned back in the 50s. But it's 2016, so with a click of a mouse, you can pretty much find anything and everything you want. So I was able to unearth a lot of these old comics. And I've spent the last couple of days going through some of the older Tales from the Crypt comics from back in the 50s. And I will say that for the most part, they're a little boring. These comics are laid out the same way that this movie was laid out. So there are separate short stories within the comic that are completely separate from the other short stories.
Oh, cool.
So I
Awesome.
mean,
So they do it like that. I didn't know that if they did. I thought it was just going to be one story
no,
throughout the
no,
whole.
no, no. It's and they're real short, but they are, like I said, they're not. In today's standards, they're not gory by any stretch of the imagination or anything.
I'm gonna have to check them out. I got to check those out.
So yeah, I'm not trying to deter anybody from checking into them. Definitely check them out.
I wonder if there's any like. I know there's got to be like there's horror comics now. I wonder what the big ones are. I'm so out of the loop with comic books.
I would assume that the big ones now are probably The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah. What was I think? Yeah, The Walking Dead, of course.
Both of us are giving Creepshow a giant thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead with I'm gonna use my other hand too, so I'll give it 2 thumbs up. It's classic horror, man. This is like early '80s. This is Stephen King, George A. Romero. You really don't get any better than that. Tom Savini doing the effects. Got some great stories, some anthologies. You don't get this kind of stuff anymore. So go enjoy it. We were lucky, man. We really grew up in the perfect time for horror.
Oh yeah, we did. We totally did. So just a few side notes. One being, as you heard at the beginning of the episode, I was lucky enough to catch Angus Scrim right before he passed away. I kind of feel like a little bit of a jerk because I kind of teased him a little bit about not dying, and then it turns out like 3 days later he died. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. As always, we'll catch you in a couple weeks. Or, well, actually, maybe it'll be a week. So we're planning on going to see The Boy
Another road trip.
in a week.
Possibly a live recording out there.
Yes, I have the recorder all ready to go. Be prepared for some teenage squealing in the background.
Lots of it.